Hello and welcome to the Smith & Brown Accountants third episode of the Excel video tutorials. Today we will be looking at adding new tabs, how to freeze panes, and looking at the various print options that we have. It was covered in a previous tutorial where that there are different sheets within an Excel worksheet which can be found on the tabs at the bottom. Here we have one labelled intro and one labelled page 1. If you wanted to add a new tab, we would simply click the plus option here, and you can see it automates the new tab to be sheet 1, sheet 2. If we wanted to edit the name of this tab, what we'd have to do is double click in that sheet tab, and then you can see it's highlighted, and now we can edit that text. So if we wanted to change that to page 2, you simply type on the keyboard page 2, and then we can click off anywhere, and that's saved. Another useful point when editing your tabs, especially when you have several tabs that's hard to pick out which one is required, you can change the colour of them simply by right clicking on the tab required, going up to tab colour in our options here and changing that. So if we change that to a red, we can now see that the intro tab has turned red. So if we come back into the page 1 tab, we have some test data here in a wide table that we were going to look at and how to analyse in respect to viewing it on the screen and how to print effectively. The first point we're going to cover is how to freeze panes in Excel. So for example, if we wanted to freeze this information here, so we could scroll across per month and it would be easier to read, or if we wanted to freeze the headings at the top, so that if we had lots of information moving down the page, and we wanted to keep this information static so we know what the column headings are, there is a function within Excel meaning that you can freeze certain rows and columns. The freeze panes option can be found in the view ribbon found at the top of the page here. Once we're in the view ribbon, we need to search for the freeze panes option, which can be found here. So if we click on that freeze panes option, we're presented with three options. General freeze panes, which is where you could freeze both rows and columns. Freeze top row option, which pretty much as it says freezes the top row of the worksheet, and same for the column where you can freeze the first column of your worksheet. So if we were to select freeze top row, for example, you can see that Excel puts a line here at the bottom of the top row which acts as your frozen point. So if I was to scroll down now, you'll see that number 1 stays static, but the rest of the cells as we scroll. So for our example, this is not very helpful at all. So if we unfreeze that frozen top row by clicking on the freeze panes option and then hitting unfreeze panes, which appears when something is frozen, you can see that line is removed and we're back to where we began. As our table is quite wide, it would be useful to freeze both this column and also the top row here with our headings in. Now to do so, under the freeze panes option, this top option where we want to freeze a row and a column, what must happen is you must select the cell. You must be selected on the one cell that sits inside that intersection. So if we wanted to freeze this column and freeze this row, we would have to be selected on cell C10 in this example here, as it sits inside the intersect point. So as long as we are on cell C10, we can move into freeze panes, select the freeze panes option, and now we can see that we have these lines that Excel puts in as guides. So if I was to scroll down now, you see that the information above that line stays static and everything else scrolls. But also this applies to the column here, so that everything to the left hand side of that line stays static. If I scroll to the right, everything else moves dynamically with that. This function is most useful when we have large amounts of data, large tables that span potentially thousands of rows and hundreds of columns wide. So I'm just going to unfreeze that information for the sake of the next point. Okay, so the next option with our formatting is how we print. Now, printing in Excel is renowned for being rather tricky and difficult. So here is a few quick steps to help us get our print size and print area sorted, so that we don't have any information overlapping pages. So all the print information can be found in the page layout ribbon. And the first thing we want to do is check our current print state. So if we were to go to our print option by simply going to Control P, which gives us a quick preview, you can see that a lot of our table, months 3 to 5, has been cut off and is on the next page down if you just scroll here. So if we wanted our table just on one page, there's a couple of ways we can get to there. First things first is setting the print area. So if we just highlight the information that we want to print, so we go to the end of the table, and then in the page layout ribbon, select print area, we can click set print area, which simply tells Excel this is the information we want to print, ignore everything else. Now we can still see, as from this dashed line here that Excel gives us, which is where the page break is. That can also be seen by flicking through our page layout options at the bottom here. So we can see that currently it's set to run over 2 pages. So we come back to the main view. What we can do, again under the page layout ribbon, is determine the width and the height of our already set print area. So if we select 1 page width and 1 page height, we tell Excel we want our information only on 1 page. Now if we press Control P and go into the print preview, we can now see that all of our information is on 1 page. The other option within this page layout is making sure that your orientation is correct. Now as ours is in landscape, it fits the wide table on the page quite nicely, but if it was a thinner table with longer information, then of course portrait would probably be the best option. So that concludes episode 3 of the Smith & Brown Accountants Excel tutorials. We hope to see you again next time.